YouTube, what's happening? All right, so this is something that I've never really broken down before, especially in the detail that I'm gonna break it down into today. That goes with any platform, and I figured getting on YouTube and starting to open up this channel, this would be a good place to go ahead and run through the protocol that I have here in great detail. Now, this is a protocol that I've used on myself time and time again. If you guys have seen in my previous YouTube videos, I've had a shit ton of shoulder surgeries. I just recently had my right shoulder replaced 12 weeks ago, and I'll be running myself through this protocol because, again, with all my prior surgeries, bringing myself back bigger, better, and more fit than before, I know that this works, and I'm excited to actually run myself through this again. This is also the exact same protocol I run all my clients through in my one-on-one program, as well as my TPC accelerator program. And I do that because I know it works. And when I first got into coaching and I started realizing that I was kind of doing the same things with myself and with my clients and getting phenomenal results, I realized that I was building a process. I was building a protocol. And I've broken that process and protocol down into these 5 phases that you see here on this whiteboard. The first thing I want to talk about is this is not a 21-day quick fix. This is not a 30-day challenge. And this is not some simple 3-month program that you're going to come in and exit and get phenomenal progress on, right? This is a protocol that I have built that is for life. This should take you, like I have here, from fat to fit to forever. And this is what I call the Built for Life protocol. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump right into phase 1. Phase 1 is what I like to call the Oracle phase. This is a discovery phase that I go through with all of my clients. This is an important phase because this is where we build the base. And this is a very important phase because this is what lays the groundwork for everything we're about to talk about. When the clients come to me, they are overworked, they are overstressed, I don't necessarily believe in overtraining. I think there's more of an under recovery issue there. But a lot of my clients that come to me are running like a horse and eating like a bird. They are overwhelmed. They have been trying to do these bullshit challenges and all these things they find on Instagram and all these other platforms, and they don't work because they're just spinning their wheels, destroying themselves. So when a client comes to me and we jump into phase 1, again, this is where we build your base. This is a discovery phase. This is where we find out all of your issues, why things are not working for you, and what we can do to figure out the root cause and correct that root cause so that you can run through all these phases and actually get the results you're looking for. This is where we run labs. This is where we talk about sleep. We talk about digestion. We talk about hormones, which actually is something that I talk a lot about in this phase because right now, for a lot of people, hormones are the main reason why they're not seeing a lot of progress. Hormones are insanely suboptimal right now, just with everybody. So once we find that out from getting labs back, we start to get answers to some questions. We start realizing why we have some of these issues, where the root cause is. We also work on managing stress. We start working on nutrition. We start finding out what you're doing right now, why it's not working. Most of the time it's because, somebody is underfed, right? They need a little bit more food to kind of get the body happy and healthy in a good spot. A lot of people are also overtraining in this phase. Like I mentioned before, people are just training 5, 6, 7 days a week, and they're not getting the proper recovery for the training that they're doing. Full transparency, a lot of people that are training 6 and 7 days a week aren't even training hard enough. So that's something else that we talk about in this phase. But again, in the Oracle phase, it's a discovery phase. We build your base. We find out what the problems are. We find out what we need to do to fix those problems. And then we start implementing the things that we know that work to start getting you in a good spot. Now, once we've kind of built your base, we've got everything in a good spot, we understand kind of where we're starting, then we'll enter phase 2. Phase 2 is a cool phase. Phase 2 is what I like to call the Bricklayer Phase. And this is where we set the foundation. I need to learn how to spell. Now, in this phase where we're setting the foundation, what we're doing here is we're finding structure. We're starting to plan. We're starting to figure out meal timing. We're starting to figure out movement. We're starting to figure out training. We're starting to dial in nutrition. We're starting to do all the things that we learned in building the base, and now we're building them into a structure that actually works. This is where we start discovering better habits. This is where we start building routines. This is where we start getting consistent. This is where we really start building those sustainable and repeatable habits that you're going to be able to take with you through the rest of this program. One of the things that I also want to talk about when it comes to phase 2 is when people come to the program, right, and they jump into phase 1, they are super motivated. They are just so hype and chomping at the bit to get started. They're getting a new program, they're getting a new coach, they're getting a new baseline for their lifestyle. They're coming into a structure that they feel at this point is gonna work, and it is. And motivation is insanely high. But just like everybody knows, motivation does not last forever. So as you start to go through these phases, we will start to see a decline in motivation. But that is where we start working in phase 2 on discipline. It's a force continuum at this point. As you're building the base, as you're stacking these bricks, you're starting to understand that the habits you're creating are working. The routines you're starting to build are working. You're starting to understand that consistency is key. And as you start to see that, and it starts to work, it's a force continuum here. As you start to get results, you start to work harder. As you start to work harder, you start to get more results. As you start doing that, you start creating more discipline. You start learning your, what I like to call your inner game, which is your mindset. Because now you're understanding why things are working. You're implementing them day after day after day. They're almost on autopilot at this point. And now you are disciplined because you're like, all right, I gotta get up and do my routine because I know it works. I gotta stick to this schedule because I know it works. I've gotta do A, B, and C because I know it works. And you know that if you don't do that, you're the one that's responsible for your lack of results. So you are stacking brick after brick after brick so you can start getting the results that you want. So again, another really important phase, but realistically they're all important phases. So after we've gone through phase 1, we've gone through the Oracle phase, we've discovered how we're going to build the base. We've gone through phase 2, we realize stacking these bricks is what sets the foundation. Now we're locked in. We understand that what we're doing is working, right? Then we start to get into phase 3, which I smile because phase 3 is probably one of the most fun phases here. Now, phase 3 is what I like to call the Reaper phase. Now, the Reaper phase is basically an aggressive fat loss phase. This is where we really start getting aggressive and trimming the fat. This is not a crash dieting phase. We're not here to create metabolic damage. We're actually here to keep the base that we set, work off the foundation we created, and we're now starting to strip away all of the unwanted body fat that we don't want and that we don't need. Now, this is the phase where a lot of people want to come into a coaching program and jump straight to. I hear this all the time in my discovery calls. I get clients and they're like, I just want to come in, I want to get shredded, I want to get lean, I want to get in a good spot. You are not going to be able to have a successful Reaper phase if you don't have a base and you don't have a foundation. Very, very important that you go through all of these stages in order. In the Reaper phase, we're going to have calories up to a point where we can actually pull from to get the fat loss that we want. Our hormones at this point should be in the spot where the body is happy and healthy and it's going to respond the way that we want. We are getting to a point here where we understand what works for your body, why it's working, and we get more aggressive with it. We start reducing calories a little bit. We start increasing a little bit of your movement. We start realizing that, hey, I still need to move. I need to keep my knee up. So we make sure that we set certain daily habits, and we have daily checklists that we use to make sure that we are accounting for everything that we need to in the Reaper phase to make it work. This is where it gets fun. You start seeing the body fat reduce, you start seeing your shape come out, you start seeing how the physiques just start to look. And this is the phase that you've been wanting to be in forever and ever and ever. And now you're starting to understand how it works. You're putting all of these pieces of the puzzle together And now we're actually able to get into a fat loss phase. Again, 90% of the time when someone comes to me, their body is not ready for a fat loss phase. So in order to have a really productive reaper phase here and really get aggressive with your fat loss, we need to make sure that we're setting the body up in a way that it's going to respond when it gets to the reaper phase. Now, the reaper phase also is probably, depending on where you are and where you came to me with or in, the shape you came to me in, gonna be probably one of your longest phases. Again, depending on your body fat percentage, where you are, how much you have to lose, how aggressive we need to get. This will probably be one of the longest phases you'll be in. Now, in the reaper phase, we do have targets, okay? When it comes to males, I like to see males get down to around the 10 to 12% body fat range. For women, I like to see them around the 18% body fat range. Once we get to those target body fat percentages, we don't go for weight, we go for body fat percentages. When we get to a certain body fat percentage, I want you to think about it like this. Think about it as in phase 1 and phase 2, and as we get into phase 3, we're basically pulling back a rubber band, right? So you know, you put a rubber band on your finger and you start to pull it back, it starts getting a lot of tension, That's the body getting super sensitive, right? We want the body to be sensitive here. Because what we want to do when we leave phase 3 is let go of that rubber band, and that's when things really start to take off. That is when we enter what I like to call the Citadel phase, and this is where we start to add tissue. This is for the guys, a phase they get super excited about. This is where we start putting on some muscle, we start putting on some size, we start getting some shape, and it starts to become a lot of fun. I'm gonna push you in the reaper phase in a certain direction, obviously to reduce your body fat, but I'm gonna push you in another direction in the Citadel phase where we're gonna start targeting tissue. We're gonna really start amping up training. We're gonna start bringing up calories. We're gonna start doing things that we need to do to start stacking on tissue. For the women, this is where we're gonna start working on capping the shoulders, rounding the glutes, working on the lower body. Training will change slightly in between these two phases, but this is the phase where you're gonna start to see that shape start to come out. A lot of people, as they go through these phases, will do what we like to call a recomp, where weight may slightly stay the same, but you're gonna start seeing the physique change. And that is the main thing here, is getting your physique to change. Now, none of this is scale-based. Like I talk about, we don't go for weight, we go by body fat percentages. But when you're in phase 4, the Citadel phase, this is where you're basically building your fortress. This is where you're stacking that tissue, you're getting your shape, you're putting on the muscle, you're starting to really showcase your physique. This is the phase where you're gonna be really excited, okay? You're gonna be happy to put on the tissue, you're already lean enough. And what we want to see here is we want to see the composition that we created in phase 3, bringing that body fat down. We want to see that stay in phase 4. We're not just going to blow calories out of the water. I'm not going to fire hose you with calories. We're not just going to go from, fit to fat. The goal here is to start adding tissue, maintaining the same composition that you had in phase 3. So you're still just as lean, you're still just as shredded, but now we're starting to fill that physique out. We're starting to add some tissue to the physique. And again, this is where everything really starts to kind of come together. Once you are done with phase 4 and you are ready to get into phase 5, phase 5 is called the blueprint phase. Now, the blueprint phase is where we basically take all of these phases and we lock in for life. This is where we start talking about an exit strategy. We start talking about stabilization, to where you now have the blueprint from everything that you learned in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4, and we're able to build a blueprint that is going to be sustainable and repeatable for life. Everything that you learn here and the way that I coach everybody through these phases is I just don't say, do this because it works, do that because it works, let's try this because I think it's going to work. I give you the tools and the resources that I know work, and I explain to you why. If you can ask the right questions, you can listen to what I say, you can implement and execute the way that everybody should as a client, you're gonna be able to take the blueprint that we create in phase 5 and you'll be able to maintain this for the rest of your life. The goal is to not come in here for a quick fix. The goal is to come into this program and change your entire life. And that is what this whole Built for Life protocol is designed for. Now, one of the questions that I do get a lot when it comes to this protocol is, Ryan, how long is this protocol going to take? That is dependent on the individual. Like I said, it depends on how high body fat percentage is, how muscular they are, where they are when they come into the program. On average, I see this last around 6 months, give or take, for people. And a lot of people think that that takes a long time, or that is a long time. But when you really break it down for what you're getting to be able to have the blueprint to maintain this for the rest of your life, it's a small window. This is not a crash and burn program. This is not a program where it may work. This is a program that works. If you put in the time, the effort, and the execution to do everything you need to do in each one of these phases, whether you're a busy professional, whether you're over 40, and everybody here should be done with the quick fixes anyway, this is the framework that works, period. Now, if you guys have any questions about anything that I put on here, you can obviously comment down below. I'll also be putting a call link down below as well in the description if you guys are interested in booking a call and kind of seeing what this protocol may look for you. I'll be setting some time aside to talk to whoever is interested, and we can get on a discovery call, see exactly how this would look for you, what this would entail, and get you locked and loaded and ready for life. Let's go.